Good morning, students. This particular lecture is very important to understand the concept of finite and non-finite verbs. So, because it's going to be a long lecture, I'll be teaching you half in the recorded form and half in the live session. Now, to understand what is non-finite and finite, I will be drawing a flow chart for you on the board. Firstly, let's discuss what are verbs. Verbs are action words. The actions which we do on a day-to-day basis, or we do rarely, or we do occasionally, are called verbs. Eat, sleep, study, watch, hear, listen. So many things, so many activities what we do are called verbs. Verbs in written forms can be categorized under two major categories. So if I have to categorize verbs, I would categorize them in two major categories. One is finite verbs and the other one would be non-finite verbs. Finite verbs and non-finite verbs. Please keep this in mind. This is non-finite verbs. Okay, do not mix up this with some other term which we'll be using later. Now, finite in English means which can be counted. Which can be counted. That means you can add a number attached to it. Like if I have a chalk, if I have 2, 3, then I would say 2 chalks, 3 chalks. Finite, countable. But non-finite over here means which cannot be counted. Now, how can verbs be countable or uncountable is the question which will arise, because I have termed the verbs under two categories. I have divided them into two categories, saying that they are finite and they are non-finite. So let's take up one by one with the help of example for you to understand what is a verb, why is a verb called a finite verb and why is it called a non-finite verb. For this we will be needing examples. I eat an apple. They eat apples. She eats apples. They are eating apples. She is eating apples. These many examples are written all in the form of tenses. Okay? The first three are in simple present tense and the next two are in present continuous tense. Now I will teach you why did I term verbs as finite verbs. Now, whatever I will be underlining or I will circle it are the subjects. Subjects are nothing but the doers of the action. If there is an action in the sentence, about whom we give information is the subject. Now the second example, let's first see the second example and then we'll get back to the prior one. This is plural. That means I'm talking about more than one human being over here. This is singular. That means the subject is singular and then I'm talking only about one human being and one girl or one lady. You can see the effect on the verb over here when the subject changes. When it is singular, the subject is also singular. I have done with you subject and verb agreement. So we're talking about that only. If your subject is singular, your verb is also singular. Verb plus s or es is used as a singular verb. If your subject is plural, the verb is also plural. Now look down. With she, I use a singular helping verb, and with they, I used a plural helping verb. So this effect comes in tenses where the effect of the number of subjects comes on the verb. That means if the subject is singular, the verb will also be singular, and if the subject is plural, the verb will also be plural. That means the verb changes in accordance to the singularity or the plurality of the subject. Because there is a connection between the number of subject and the verb, that is why I termed it as a finite verb. That means the effect of the singularity, whether the subject is singular or plural, will have a repercussion, a change in the verb. These kind of verbs which will change themselves or tally up themselves in accordance to the number of people we are talking about, or number of things we are talking about, number of subjects we are talking about. These kind of verbs are called finite verbs. And under the finite verbs, you can say all tenses come under this category. All the tenses: simple present tense, present continuous tense, present perfect continuous tense. All the tenses will change. Like has will be used for singular, have will be used for plural, is will be used for singular, are will be used for plural, was will be used for singular, and were will be used for plural. So these kind of verbs will change their nature in accordance to the subject's number, will be called finite verbs because a number is attached to them. Now let's see what are non-finite verbs. Non-finite verbs. I have written two examples on the board. She loves to eat ice cream. They love to eat ice cream. Now I will underline two words over here, to eat and to eat. Now here in this sentence they are both finite and non-finite verbs. You will understand clearly as to what am I trying to say. Let's concentrate on this first because now I am taking care of non-finite verbs. The first subject is singular. The second subject is plural. But if you notice, there is no change even if the subject is singular or plural on these verbs over here. Eat is a verb. There is no change. Even if it is she, it is to eat. And even if it is they, there is to eat only. So here these particular verbs did not change with the change in number in the subject. That is why they are called non-finite verbs. That's the reason why they are called non-finite verbs. Now how, I told you there is a finite verb also in this and there is a non-finite verb also. The finite verb over here is loves and love. It had an effect on it. When it became plural, when the subject became plural, this also became plural. When the subject became singular, this also became singular. These are the non-finite verbs on which the subject singularity or plurality did not have any effect. These are the finite verbs on which the subject singularity or plurality had an effect. So, that's the concept of finite verbs and non-finite verbs. Now, let's discuss how many kinds of non-finite verbs do you have. Well, now let's see how many kinds of non-finite verbs are there. So this is the complete flow chart of the verbs. Like I categorize them into finite, non-finite first. Then under non-finite you have first infinitives, participles, gerunds. That means these verbs will not change in accordance to the subject's number. Keep that in mind. These will not change at all. Now the names have been given as infinitives, participles and gerunds. One by one I will teach you what is what. Now let's take up infinitives first. First non-finite verb which we will be discussing is infinitives. Now what is infinitive? When you ask me, ma'am, how does an infinitive look? How can we say that this is an infinitive? My answer to that question would be, infinitive would be a combination of the preposition to plus the base form of the verb, nothing added to the verb. To sing, to eat, to dance, to bathe, to practice, to rehearse. Everywhere, whichever verb I called out is the normal form of the verb, and I added the preposition to it. In my prior example also I said, she loves to eat ice creams. They love to watch cartoons. He just loves to laze around. So these are the words which will not change in accordance to the subject's number. And what is the purpose of an infinitive also, let's discuss. It helps us in joining two sentences. It helps us in joining two sentences, or it helps us in forming a phrase. Forming a phrase. It will help us in forming a phrase, as well as it will help us in joining two sentences. This exercise is in your workbook. We'll be doing it. So this is the main purpose of an infinitive, to join two sentences and to form a phrase. Remember, please don't confuse the word non-finite verbs and infinitives. Infinitive is a part of the non-finite verb. Okay? So non-finite verb is the main category and this is the subcategory. Now let's proceed to the next one, which is the participle. Participle can be further categorized in two forms: present participle and past participle. Now present, let's discuss about present participle. Both are non-finite verbs only. Present participle, how will it look? Like infinitive is to plus the base form of the verb. Present participle will be verb plus ing. I gave you an example: eating, bathing, dancing, studying, rehearsing, singing. All words are ending with ing. So the only word, nothing attached to it, no, is, are, has, have. Present participle can be part of your tenses as well. But non-finite form, you will find only the participle over there. You will have nothing attached to it, is or are or has or have. You will find only this word, only single word with verb plus ing in it. That's how you detect that this is a present participle. It will have no helping word attached to it. Now, the past participle is the third form of the verb which ends with N. Most of the verbs don't have this form, but there are certain verbs which have this form, like you have drink, drank, drunk. So the drunk word is the third form of the verb. You have eat, ate, eaten. Eaten is the third form of the verb. So I would majoritively call it as the N form of the verb, because maximum times you see it ends with N. So that is the past participle. Again, it will have no helping verbs attached to it in the non-finite category. In the non-finite category, it will have no helping verbs attached to it. I am saying this on a repetitive mode so that it sticks in your brain. When I talk about non-finite verbs, no, is, are, was, were, has, have, had, will attach to these particular words. Keep that in mind. Please take that in mind. Okay. This is how you can detect which participle, which word is a participle. Now let's see what role play do they play. Now, participles are used to join sentences. They also help in joining sentences, and they act as adjectives as well. Adjectives are words which help you in describing the quality of a noun. So this is the purpose of participle. Like infinitive, I just now said, has the purpose of joining two sentences and it helps us in forming phrases. Participle also helps us in joining sentences and It acts as an adjective also. I will be telling you how to join sentences in your workbook with the participle. That will be done. Now, how does it act as an adjective is very interesting. Like if I say, I'm scared of dancing dolls. Are the dolls dancing in this particular sentence? No. But the word dancing has been used to describe about the doll. So here the word dancing is a present participle. Okay. So that word dancing dolls if I say, then this word dancing plays the role of an adjective describing the quality of the doll. So this is a present participle because the action is not happening, nor does it have any is, are, were attached to it, but it is acting as a descriptive word when you ask what kind of a doll? Dancing doll. So that would be your present participle. Let's take the example of past participle in the adjective form. The soldiers carried the wounded civilians on their shoulders. What kind of civilians? Wounded civilians. So this is the third form of the verb, wounded civilians. Now that comes a past tense which actually is qualifying the noun over here. What kind of civilians are we talking about? Is the action happening over there? No. But the word wounded describes the condition of the civilians. So that's an adjective for the civilians. So that's an example how the past participle acts as an adjective, and this is the example how does the present participle act as an adjective. Now these put together, they will help you in joining sentences. Keep that in mind. Joining of sentences will be done in workbook. Now let's see the last part of it. What is a gerund? The last of the non-finite verbs is the gerund. Now here comes a little bit glitch, a problem, that how to detect, when I asked you how to detect whether the verb is a non-finite verb is a participle or infinitive or a gerund. I gave you for infinitive and participles, but there will be a little bit of confusion between the gerund and the present participle because even a gerund is verb plus ing. This will also look as verb plus ing action not happening, but there is a vast difference in the usage. I said in my lecture that participles act as adjectives. Gerunds act as nouns. They are naming words. Verb plus ing will be used in the form of an name given to a activity. Now for example, I would say drawing is my hobby. Now here, because it's a non-finite verb, the action will not take place, nor will the word have any is, was, were in front of it. But we have used verb plus ing over here. But if this were to be a participle, it would have a noun attached to it, saying like I had said earlier, dancing dolls. I don't have any other word attached to it over here. But why is this acting like a noun is the question. Now the word drawing has been given, is being used to give a name to an activity. Drawing. If I say drawing, that means you know that the activity's name is drawing. Singing is my passion. The procedure of using words in a rhythmic way and using your voice to portray the song is that term which is being used for the activity is called singing. Smoking is injurious to health. If you take a cigarette, if somebody takes a cigarette, they smoke. The process has been given a name, smoking. So they are verb plus ing, but they act as a noun. Remember that. If participle is used, if participle was to be used, it will have a noun attached to it. There will be two words, verb plus ing plus noun. But when you see a gerund, it will be alone. it will be alone and it will be a name given to some kind of a thing. Keep that in mind. That's the basic difference and the major difference between the participle and the gerund. So these three are your non-finite verbs. We have discussed all. Please see the lecture, go through the lecture thoroughly, and then we'll do the exercises in the verb book. Thank you.